My dad once told us a true scary story from when he was in his 20s, still living with my grandparents next door to an older couple in their 60s. One winter, the wife, Margie, went missing. The husband knocked on our door, asking if we'd seen her, but unfortunately, none of us had. No one had seen her anywhere. A few days later, my dad was out in the park playing football with friends when it started to snow. They played for a while until it became too much, then headed home separately. When my dad got home, he realized his parents were gone. He started the fireplace and went to his room, which was adjacent to the living room, to throw his stuff on his bed. Then he decided to take a warm shower. After showering, as he was drying off, he thought he heard humming from the living room outside the bathroom. He called out, "Mom?" The humming stopped, but he heard a creaking sound continue. Hastily throwing on his clothes in the bathroom, he walked out into the living room. There, in my grandpa's old rocking sofa chair, sat Margie from next door. She looked straight at my dad and said, "It was so cold, I needed to get warm." Terrified, my dad ran next door to get the husband. Together, they rushed back to the living room, but the rocking chair was empty. Margie was gone. They searched the whole house calling her name, but she was nowhere to be found. The eerie part didn't end there. The next day, Margie's dead body was discovered in the husband's crawl space. She had apparently tripped and fatally injured herself on a sharp object, and her body had been there for at least 3 days. The husband had only found her because the smell had become unbearable, reaching all the way to the garage. To this day, my dad firmly believes he saw Margie's ghost in our grandparents' living room that day. He's not one to make up stories like this. When he first told us this chilling tale when I was 9 years old, needless to say, I didn't get much sleep that night. If you hit that like button, there's a good chance someone else's spine will get tingled by these stories.
My friend Keith has an uncle with dementia. Long story short, his uncle usually lives with his grandma, but she was in Florida with some church group for the week. Keith was going on a business trip, so while he was gone, he hired me to house sit. This included watching after and taking care of his uncle. I'll call him Uncle Nick. Keith would only be gone for 2 days. On the first day of my house sitting, I mostly just hung out in the backyard, reading and tanning, or in the living room watching TV. I cooked twice, each time making extra food for Uncle Nick, but I never saw him come out of his room upstairs. I went up to knock on his door lightly and tell him I made food. I heard a grunting noise on the other side of the door. I assumed that was his way of acknowledging me. I never actually met his uncle, oddly enough. We weren't introduced when Keith hired me for this little job. Uncle Nick was fully aware of my being there, or at least that's what Keith said. He never left his room to eat while I was in the living room, so I went up to the spare room Keith had prepared for me for the night. I left the door cracked open so I could listen. I eventually heard a door down the hall opening and unsettlingly quick, heavy footsteps moving down the hall and down the stairs. Seconds later, I heard the same footsteps rush back up the stairs and back to the room, and the door slammed shut. It was honestly a little unnerving. It's hard to explain, just the intensity of his footsteps, like he was avoiding me or something. The next day was pretty similar to the first. I made 2 meals and left the food on the counter for Uncle Nick both times. When I was laying in the backyard again, I came back in to see the plate was empty, so I guess he was really avoiding me. I went back out to tan some more, and when I thought about it, I looked up to the bedroom Nick was staying in. There he was, looking at me through the window. When he noticed me, he ducked down. I felt so uncomfortable that I folded up the blanket and went back inside and up to the spare bedroom. It was okay. I had one more night of this and then I'd be home. I made dinner that night and left him another plate. As I walked up to the spare bedroom, I noticed his bedroom door was open. It was the first time I'd seen that. Maybe he was becoming less shy. I went to brush my teeth and go to my room for the rest of the night to give him his space. I was having a rough time sleeping, though. I just wasn't tired at all. While laying there in the dark, I heard a short creaking sound coming from inside the room, even over the noise of the fan next to me. I sat up and looked around, still able to slightly see in the dark room. I didn't see anything. More specifically, I didn't see Uncle Nick. I was getting paranoid, honestly. Why was I becoming so creeped out by him? I lay back down on my side, facing the wall next to the bed. I ignored the little sounds I thought I was hearing in my head for the most part. But when I heard a very faint groan, I sat up and turned off the fan to listen. I heard breathing. I turned to the far right side of the room by the desk, and there he was, sitting on the desk chair, turned towards me. I screamed in fear. He came up to me saying, "Shh," and covered my mouth with his hand. In the moment, I thought he was trying to suffocate me, so I pushed him off of me and ran to the nearest bathroom to lock the door. I listened as I heard his manic footsteps rush back to his room, and the door slam shut. My heart was pounding inside my chest. I called Keith and told him about it. He sounded like he wasn't even that shocked. That's the scary thing. He told me it was best I sleep in the bathroom with the door locked. When he said that, it suggested to me that Uncle Nick was potentially dangerous, which scared me even more. I slept maybe 3 hours max that night on the bathroom floor. In the morning, I quickly packed my backpack and waited out in the backyard for Keith to return. He paid me extra for what I had to deal with. I suggested that he get his uncle some serious help because I think he has more than dementia. I still don't know what his intentions were that night.
Thanks for listening. If you want to help build the True Chiller community, like, subscribe, and share.